Hello, Tallinn. How you doing? Yeah? All right, you can clap. That's cool. I'm really honored to be here. I want to say thank you to Yuso and all the organizers. And as an American, I want to say thank you. Dear God, thank you for the GDPR and all the leading work you're doing in Tallinn and Finland in data and identity. Thank you. I'm going to be talking about prioritizing human well-being for ethical AI today. AI, of course, artificial intelligence. And when I say well-being, I don't necessarily mean mood. I actually am referring to indicators like the GDP that recognize both subjective and objective metrics about what's called flourishing. And although I know I'm supposed to talk about ethics and AI, I'm going to get to that sort of in the second half of my talk. My Twitter handle is @JohnCHavens. I welcome tweets if you want to tweet, so thank you. All right, so first, I know it was just lunchtime. It was lunchtime, and you might have these weird little desks that are hard to stand, but ladies, let me ask you, please, as a favor, if you're a woman and you're here today, and I'm pretty sure I see some women here today, go ahead and stand up. Just stand up briefly, if you would, ladies. Go ahead. Don't worry, I'm not going to make you sing or anything. Just stand up. Go ahead. Okay. No, I can't see you. I don't see you, ladies. I don't see you. Okay, go ahead and sit down. Okay, did that feel weird? That was purposefully weird, so thank you. The reason I did that is you were right in front of me, right? Ladies, I could see you. But I want to talk today about GDP, and I sort of picture, I'm from near New York, so I love Brooklyn. So I'm not putting Brooklyn down. But when I think of the GDP, or gross domestic product, I think of this guy, like, hey, how you doing? Ladies, how are you? But he actually doesn't even see women. And here's what I mean. When the GDP was created in the late 30s as a mathematical formula by a guy named Simon Kuznets, he said, don't use this as a measure of prosperity. And in economics language, prosperity oftentimes is equated with happiness. And then in 1944, I'll tell you more about that in a minute, there was something called the Bretton Woods Conference in the US that galvanized the GDP as the primary metric of value for the planet. Now this audience, the reason I'm so stoked to be here, besides the fact that I've been in the personal data world for the past 7 years, you understand this community gets the power of the invisible. Yes? Right? Can I have a yes? Or whatever language, feel free, scream it out, yes, da, whatever, thank you. Jawohl, that's probably German, okay. Anyway, yes, right? And the reason I bring up women, right? When the GDP was galvanized in 1944, around the world, and actually this is still the case today, in general, women are the people who stay at home with kids and take care of kids. Now we think in 2017 that, well, sure, home care work, you don't get paid for it with money, and it's parenting, right? I want to be a good parent to stay at home with my kids. Well, let's be clear, that was a decision that was made in 1944 to say that home care work won't get measured in the GDP. And there's a woman named Professor Marilyn Waring, one of my heroes. She wrote a fantastic book called If Women Counted. And she's a well-known feminist from New Zealand and an economist. And she made the breathtakingly, incredibly important point that if women, because they are taking care of kids, who make up the majority of the planet in terms of, women, half the people on the planet, right? And if you take care of kids, this is the same if you're a man, right? But in general, right now, women are the people that stay at home with kids. And I mean all over the world, not just the States and Europe. If you take care of kids, you are not seen by the GDP. You don't exist to the GDP. You are not valued by the GDP. And that means you are devalued overall. So the reason I'm bringing this up today is that we have to have metrics that don't just measure financial aspects of our individual lives and society. As we think about artificial intelligence, we have to have metrics that in the corporate world we call the triple bottom line: financial, and the environment, the place where we live, because I don't have the money for a Mars ticket. Thanks, Elon Musk. I'm hoping we can fix this planet, not just bail and go to Mars. And the third is societal metrics, things like depression, which is at pandemic levels for the world. When you stretch the lens beyond GDP, then you see, little things like women, for instance. Kind of important. Okay, some other things about GDP, and this is critical. I'm getting to AI, but this is the backbone. This is the invisible that we need to talk about and make visible. I have this picture here. It's sort of a cocaine reference, right? Subtle, and it's with candy and money. When the GDP was created in 1944, it was in the wake of the Second World War. And at that time, the physical infrastructure, of course, as you would know in Europe, was decimated, right? Good parts of Europe lay in ruins. Same with Japan. And then certainly all the soldiers who had given their lives. At that time, a value for the world was to build up infrastructure in an exponential way. Right, when you hear me talk about GDP, don't get the impression, even though I talked about the guy from Brooklyn, how you doing, right? What I meant there was to say we have to move beyond GDP. It's a yes and. But in 1944, after the Second World War, it made sense to have exponential growth. We have to build quickly. Nonetheless, especially in the US, this idea of productivity moved from being, hey, let's do good work, and let's go to work today and do good work, and know we're doing good work. We want to be productive, right? You got to make money. I get it. But somewhere along the line, the idea of the exponential growth after the Second World War stuck with us, and it became a philosophy almost to the point of being a religion. So now productivity is not just, I got to do good work. And not even I have to do better than my competitor, but I always have to be on. I have to be not at level 1 or 2, but 10 and 20 and 50. And exponential growth in the wake of artificial intelligence for humans, want to be crystal clear, we cannot sustain that level of growth as humans. We're just not built the same way as machines. Doesn't mean machines are bad or that we're good or all that stuff. It just means we need to recognize that GDP encourages exponential growth and a type of productivity that is not healthy for humans. Same thing with the word consumer. I don't know what the word consumer is in Estonian or Finnish. I hate the word consumer. I loathe the word consumer. My kids are here today. I'm honored that they came. It's the first time they've heard me speak. I forced them. Thank you. I don't want my kids to be called consumer, because that defines us as humans as a verb, where we only have value in the act of consuming. Right? Let me ask you this, here in the audience: are you only worth what your wealth? Is your wealth all that you're worth? Yes or no? Your bank account, is that all you are? Give me a yes or no. I can't hear you. That was good. I hope that was good. So yes or no? Are you worth more than your money? Yes? All right, I'll try to make it easy. Say yes after I finish my sentence. Are you worth more than money? Yes. Do you believe that? Yes. Then stop being called a consumer. I used to be an EVP of a top 10 marketing firm. This report I did with this buddy of mine from Vision Critical, 3,000 people, customers, answered in less than 48 hours. They said, stop calling us consumers. When we're customers, that's when we say, hey, I'd like to buy something from you. Great. Now you're at an equal footing. You're building trust. When you're called a consumer, it means the second you can't buy or be productive. Again, just like women, as I said in the beginning, you're not even there. It's not even that you're not worth anything, you don't exist. That has to end. So I mentioned this, right? The Bretton Woods Conference in 1944. It's when all these countries, 44 countries, got together and said, okay, we need a primary metric of value that we all understand. From a monetary standpoint, okay. I was kind of surprised when I saw this sign that it was the US dollar. Whatevs. That was the decision that was made then. But in 1944, if it was okay, or sort of the cultural zeitgeist for women to stay in the home to raise their kids, okay, we can call it sexist, but that's just how it happened, right? But let me ask you this, and I'll try to make it simple again if I give you a yes or no question, okay? I daily work with the idea that machines could become conscious, right? In the AI world right now, machines could gain sentience or consciousness 30, 40, 50 years. This is a picture of Elon Musk's Neuralink technology, where in 5 or 10 years, we could have chips in our brain that in one sense would let us read each other's thoughts. Okay, do you think if we can read each other's thoughts in 2017, it's time to evolve the primary metric of value created in 1944? Answer, yes. Ladies, do you want to evolve it? Or are you cool with staying in the house no matter what? Anybody? Anybody? No? You're still like, is he saying yes or no? Yeah, okay. Anyway, the point is, it's time to change, right? Please let this sink in. My whole point here is to say, you may think, who cares so much about the GDP? I wish this guy would shut up about the GDP. It underlies everything that we make, everything that we do. And again, I'm an American, so I'm speaking mainly from my perspective. I guarantee when you come to the States and you work in a big company, and of course, many of you have worked in the States or have friends in the States, productivity is a philosophy, and it feels like a religion, more like a cult. Another hero of mine is a guy named Joseph Stiglitz. The Stiglitz Commission, you may know from 2009. At the time, the president of France, Nicolas Sarkozy, commissioned all these global thought leaders, Amartya Sen and Stiglitz among them, to say, please study the GDP. See if there's something, is it a good metric, or should we move beyond it? And this is what they came up with, GDP. By the way, these 3 quotes are from a conference that he did at the World Economic Forum, Stiglitz, last year. This was from last year, 2016. He said, GDP is not a good measure of economic performance, so it's not even really great at what it was designed to do anymore. It's not a good measure of well-being. And this is a quote from him from last year. GDP in the US has gone up every year except 2009, but most Americans are worse off than they were a third of a century ago. The benefits have gone to the very top. At the bottom, real wages adjusted for today are lower than they were 60 years ago. This is an economic system that is not working for most people. I will tell you, I'm an American. The economic system is not working for most people. And when you have those 3 little letters, GDP, that are recognized around the planet, and there's the myth, the fallacy, that when GDP goes up, everything's great. Policymakers, GDP is going up, fantastic, right? It's better than when it goes down, fine. But do not think that when the GDP goes up, it means people are happier. Do not think that when GDP goes up, it means that there is equal distribution of the wealth or what's happening in that country. And what Stiglitz says here is what we measure informs what we do. And if we're measuring the wrong thing, we're going to do the wrong thing. And in terms of women, if we're not measuring women, they won't be included at all. Okay, I took so much time talking about this because it's the underlying paradigm of how we create technology today. And in terms of what we measure, this is an issue when the artificial intelligence, the AI we create, is influenced, measured, or justified primarily by GDP. I go to all these conferences about AI, and right now, which is fine, people are saying AI and robotics in the next 4 years will increase GDP by this much, increase GDP by this much, increase GDP. Okay, when you have these conferences and you talk about jobs, well, which jobs are we going to have in 5 years? I'm using this voice because I hear the same thing at every conference. Let me be clear. When you prioritize exponential growth, there is no business logic to not automate every human out of a job as fast as possible. There's no business logic. If you have shareholders who are saying, all I want you to do is increase my profits exponentially, and you find a technology that can replace 1,000 workers, save you money, and increase productivity by 30% in months, guess what people are going to do? And we can't blame the evil corporations, right? It's not their fault. We have to expand the logic of what is valuable. Does that make sense? If it's just productivity and we're talking about jobs, Humans, no more jobs. So, I'm the executive director of this program for IEEE. IEEE is the world's largest technology association, created in the 1800s by Thomas Edison, that guy. And there's about 500,000 members in over 160 countries. And I'm honored that Katrina, who's speaking later, is on one of our committees. We're co-chair of the Personal Data Committee. She's also running one of the standards working groups. She'll tell you more about that in a minute. We have two primary things that we do. 5 minutes? Oh, 4 minutes. All right, I got to rush. I'll tell you more about this at the conference. Please find me. But the document on the left, it's going to come out in December, about 200 pages. We want to be the long-form place where people who have questions about AI ethics, how do I actually build it? And these 11 standards working groups, we'd love to have you join them. They're free. You don't have to be an IEEE member to join. We're trying to build the future of what AI ethics can be. But in conclusion, this is the question, this is why I talked about GDP that we're grappling with right now, is even if you create these technologies responsibly, because no one's like, hey, let's build unethical AI to kill people. As a rule, they don't say it at least. What are the metrics for societal success for ethical AI once released to the world? We did this big event at the European Parliament in April. All these parliamentarians came, people from the EU Commission, prioritizing human well-being in the age of artificial intelligence. I'm head of P7010. This is a working group. Happy to have you join. What we're trying to do is to say, how can we connect the code that programmers in the AI world are actually creating so that it can connect? We're not trying to create a new metric or indicator. What we're trying to do is things like the OECD Better Life Index or the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. How can someone building a companion robot or an algorithm know not only is what I'm building ethical in its design, it's transparent, it's accountable, but it can actually have data that correlates to these things that provably increase human well-being. And again, in conclusion, my daughter's here today. I put the slide up here for her. We got the chance to see a wonderful Broadway musical called Dear Evan Hansen, and there's a song there called Waving Through the Window. This is how I feel about my data in the States. I feel like I have my hand up, and I have about 2 or 3 years before it's gone. And my data and my identity become lost. Again, thank you to Europe for the GDPR, for keeping that, hope alive. But I don't want the environment. This is a praying mantis smoking. I just thought it was a fun picture. We need to widen the metrics beyond GDP, right? There's the fiscal, which we have an okay hand on with GDP. But the environment in terms of sustaining the place we live, we have to have metrics like the Better Life Index and the Better Planet Index that we factor in. Same thing with societal metrics. Depression is at pandemic levels. The World Health Organization, the UN SDGs. These are things we can build AI and say, with our robots, with whatever, are we improving well-being? And again, this community, making the visible from the invisible, this is something we can do together. Okay, I'm gonna ask one last thing. I know you're probably checking email and all that stuff, but go ahead and stand up, if you would, one more time. I know it's after lunch, but this is a way to get the blood going. If you don't mind, go ahead and stand up with me. Go ahead, stand up. Even if you resent it, that's okay. You can get mad at me later. But with this majestic person in a bunny outfit, we have the MyData Declaration. I was hoping we could say the Beyond GDP Declaration together, okay? And hopefully you actually believe what you're saying, but if not, just go ahead and say it and then we'll let you sit down. Okay, first, number one, we must prioritize the environment. Go ahead and say it. We must prioritize the environment. Okay, I'll try it again because something happened with my mic. We must prioritize the environment. There you go, Tallinn. We must prioritize people. Do you believe that? Say it again. We must prioritize people, the humans. We must prioritize, we are humans, thank you. We must prioritize purpose over productivity. We must prioritize human well-being over exponential growth. All right, and then 2 more, and then you're done. All right, but this one, has anyone here ever lived with credit card debt? Anybody? I used to be an actor. Okay, so I oftentimes don't feel that I'm worth more than my money. I'm being straight with you. But I know now, and I'm saying this in front of my family who are here, I am worth more than my wealth. If you feel that, go ahead and say it. I'm worth more than my wealth. Seriously, do you believe that? I don't know. In America, it's like you go to a party and within minutes, you'll know how much someone else makes. It's horrifying. So do you believe this? I am worth more than my wealth. Say it like you mean it. And last thing, if you're kind of pissed, as I hope you are, especially ladies, I'm not exaggerating. If you're at home and take care of kids, same as with a guy, you are not seen by the biggest metric of value in the planet. So get pissed and say this if you mean it. I am worthy to be seen and valued by the metrics measuring the world. Go ahead. All right, one more time, say it if you actually believe it like you mean it. I am worthy, go ahead. I am worthy to be seen and valued by the metrics measuring the world. I know you're Europeans. Sometimes you're a little bit more sedate. I'm the American up front. One last time. I am worthy to be seen and valued by the metrics measuring the world. Yes. Yes, you are. Yes, I am. Yes, we are. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you, John.